Save your $150 because these might potentially be a dupe. I am the biggest makeup dupe hater, okay? But I also don't believe that makeup should be expensive to look good. So to be actually helpful, I'm going to compare the similarities and differences between my favorite high-end products and potential drugstore dupes so that you can decide which one is actually worth it. $19 Rare Beauty eyebrow gel or an $11 eyebrow gel. They are so similar. The Maybelline has a longer wand and the Rare Beauty has a shorter wand, but the actual kind of design of the eyebrow gel is almost identical. I would say the Maybelline is slightly stubbier and the Rare Beauty is just a little bit longer. So I usually just comb the brow hairs back just to get all the product on it, and then I comb it into the shape I want. I love the Rare Beauty just because the brush combs out my brows perfectly, but this does not give my eyebrows any white flakes, and I would say it has a pretty decent hold. I have really stubborn eyebrow hairs, and then whatever's left over I just kind of comb my brows upwards. The other side is going to be the Maybelline side. Just comb it back and then flatten it out. Okay, it's doing the same thing in the sense of brushing my hairs beautifully. I'm not seeing any white flakes. I would say this one's feeling a little bit more wet though, but it's also a newer bottle, so that could be why. This is the $19 side and this is the $11 side. So I did swatch both of these formulas on my hand, and I can confirm that the Rare Beauty one is slightly waxier and it also has a little bit of a fog to it, but again, it doesn't create any white residue on your eyebrows. The Maybelline one is slightly wetter, so it does take a little bit longer to dry, but it is more clear than the Rare Beauty. So my makeup is finished. I do think the Maybelline lifted just a little bit on the tail end, while the Rare Beauty is completely down. There are some stubborn hairs over here that lifted a little bit, but honestly, I'm pretty happy with it. The brushes are very similar, the formula is very similar, and even the hold time is very similar. So I think it's safe to say this is a dupe. A $58 primer or a $17 primer. I'm going to do the Hourglass on this side and the NYX on this side. Now, I don't think either of these primers are actually necessary, but I do love them because they each create just a beautiful, smooth base for foundation. I did put it on my bad side because if it's $58, it better be better than the drugstore, okay? As you can see, it doesn't really do anything for my pores. It just creates this really smooth silicone but hydrating base, and that's why I've paid $58 for it. It's just really good in my opinion. But let's put the NYX Marshmallow Primer on the other side. Here I have slightly less texture in pores, but it's still very visible. And this one smells like marshmallows. You can see that this texture is more white. It's not as wet of a texture. It's very kind of, I would describe it as moussey in a way without being thick. And it does feel hydrating like the Hourglass, but as you can tell, I kind of put too much. I already see a difference. The Hourglass does actually look smoother than the NYX. The NYX also is giving this strange cast. It could be because I applied too much, but the Hourglass is very almost matte, I will say. And the NYX has a lot more dew. This is the $58 Hourglass side, and this is the $17 NYX side. So right off the bat, before even applying on foundation, I would not consider this a dupe. Let's move on to the potential dupe that I am the most excited about. A $6 foundation stick from Essence. Yeah, crazy. $6. They have so many different shades, and the Fenty Eavesdrop Skin Tint Stick for $39. I don't remember it being this expensive. I already know that I absolutely love this foundation stick from Essence. I have the shade 180. The match is pretty freaking spot on, and I love the way that this blends on my skin. I have the shade 10 in the Fenty Beauty Skin Tint Stick. This one feels a bit waxier, but it also glides onto the skin really smoothly, and the shade is just slightly deeper, I would say. Let's blend out the Fenty side. I'm just using patting motions. Sticks usually just kind of sit on the skin, so you kind of want to blend it into the skin. Ooh, this one has pretty decent coverage actually. I'm gonna do the same thing, push it into the skin. I actually think this undertone matches me beautifully. It's not too orange, and it just blends like butter. I cannot believe this is $6. I'm getting a little bit more coverage with Fenty, but it could also be because the shade is slightly darker. The Essence side also has a little bit more dew than the Fenty side. Let's go in again with the Essence to see if I can get more coverage. Again, just pushing it into the skin. I did get slightly more coverage with the Essence, so I would say depending on your skin, the Essence can build up slightly to medium and can be sheared out to a light coverage. The Fenty, I've had this for a while, so it can do the same thing. Oh yeah, they're both super creamy and thin, but the Essence side does blend more sheer, and the Fenty side has a little bit more, I wouldn't say wax, but it's just slightly thicker than the Essence. And I do notice on my hand, the Fenty side is setting down a bit more matte. Generally, I would say that if you have oily skin and you don't mind splurging a little bit, then Fenty is the better option. But if you're on a budget and you want something that's close to the Fenty, lightweight, light to medium coverage, then I would go with the Essence because it's $6 freaking dollars. Okay, $6. You can't beat that. And it's not just good because it's cheap, it's actually a high quality product. Save your $33, the Essence foundation is just as good. Now we're gonna move on to the Rare Beauty bronzer stick compared to the Essence foundation stick, but in a different color. I thought that these would be comparable because the Essence is super blendable, super creamy. So the Rare Beauty one I have in the shade Happy Soul, this is slightly a little bit too light for me and more cool toned on the skin. So the shades are definitely not the same, but as you can tell, it just kind of melts onto the skin. But so does the Essence foundation stick. I have the shade in 230. It's slightly warmer and also a better tone for my skin as a bronzer. And there's so many shades in this foundation stick, so there's a better chance of you finding a bronzer option for you, while the Rare Beauty comes with less shade options and it's more expensive. The Essence definitely feels just as creamy. All right, let's blend out Rare Beauty. It blends like a dream. I have no issues blending this bronzer at all. And for $28, worth every penny. Blending out the Essence side. I love the shade of this. I feel like it matches my forehead perfectly, which is my natural bronze color. Ooh. Yeah, that looks so much more like my skin. Okay, so I will say, just observing, the Rare Beauty is slightly more pigmented and also matte. The Essence has a tiny bit more dew and it's not as pigmented, so I'm gonna add a little bit more on that side. Both of these products, you can tell they're just sweating in their component, but they're super creamy, super blendable. They're so close in performance that I think you'd be happy with either one, to be honest. So I just mixed Ube Cream from Huda Beauty with the Rare Beauty Spirited, and I just think it really gives me the perfect soft pink blush I've been looking for. I wish there was like one liquid blush that had this combined, but you know what? I have both now, and I finally found my perfect soft pink blush, which I've been looking for months. Now, I do not have any powder dupes I want to try, so I'm just gonna go in with my Laneige setting powder. I have been loving this powder just to lightly set your makeup. So if you have dry skin and you're sick of powder looking like powder, this is the powder for you. It keeps me matte without me having to bake, which I really like. This is with the powder, this is without. I also love using it with the BK Beauty 114 brush because I think it just evenly distributes it, almost like if I were to use a puff without using a puff. All right, so let's compare a $38 powder bronzer, my all-time favorite Haus Labs bronzer, with the NYX Butter bronzer. Now these are very similar in the sense that they have this very velvety, smooth, silky texture to them, but the shades are very different, okay? Starting with the NYX Buttermelt bronzer. This one I'm going to use a very light hand because it's already more pigmented than the Haus Labs. Tap off the excess, and I'm just going to blend it onto my forehead. Wow, I actually haven't used this in such a long time. This is a beautiful color actually. A little bit on the chin. I feel like it just kind of brings the face together. Going in with the Haus Labs powder bronzer. This is in the shade medium level 6. Again, this is the older version, so it might be called something different now. But this has a very similar texture. It's just less pigmented and also more of an orange color. I can go a little bit more heavy-handed with this because of the shade difference and the pigmentation difference. Yeah, already I'm seeing more bronze than definition. I do think that the NYX gives me a little bit more definition. And I'm really pushing into the Haus Labs to get the payoff that I want. So this is the NYX side, and this is the $38 Haus Labs side. They are very similar in formulation. It's very velvety, soft, smooth, and silky, but the shades are very different, and the pigmentation is also different. Depending on the color you want and your budget, then I think it's okay to go with the NYX. But if you want something that's a little bit easier to work with and leans more orange warm, then I would go with the Haus Labs. The Buttermelt bronzer also has a very, very strong smell. Honestly, it kind of gives me a headache, so I do prefer the Haus Labs for that reason. So if you are sensitive to smell, then I would just splurge. I won't say this is an exact dupe, but they are pretty close to each other. The next drugstore comparison I wanted to do is the Huda Beauty lip stain versus the Palladio lip stain. This is $8, this is $25. The shades are kind of similar, and I have already tested this. So based on my past experiences, I will say that the Palladio, I think that's how you pronounce it, isn't as long lasting than the Huda Beauty. I also prefer the Huda Beauty's applicator. It's much softer and less rough, while the Palladio has that traditional marker application. But if you're okay with splurging, I do think the Huda Beauty is nice as well. You just have to store it upside down. I've had this for I think a couple to a few weeks, and all I do is store it upside down, and I haven't had an issue with drying out. I just find that sometimes it distributes product unevenly, which is what I don't like about it. So let me just show you. So the shade that I have is in, what is this color? It has a red undertone to it. The good thing is that because it doesn't stain quickly, I can kind of rub it to blend it in with my lips. You can kind of see how this bleeds. I think the marker tip is perfectly fine. It's just rougher and also thicker. So it's going to create thicker lines. On this side, we're going to do the Huda Beauty lip stain. This is in the shade Toasted Brown. And this applicator is much softer. It's also slightly less red and as dark as the Palladio. I could also blend this one out. Wait a minute. The colors is looking like a dupe. I cannot tell the difference. That is 100% a color dupe. For longevity, Huda Beauty 100% wins. But if you only want a shade dupe, then it's worth getting the $8 one over the $25 one. Let me show you my new favorite drugstore lip combo. I'm gonna go in with a dark brown with a red undertone lip liner. Clean it up a little bit with some powder foundation. Then I'm going to go in with a lip stain gloss that's kind of a rosy, cool tone nude. So it is the NYX Hydrating Gloss Serum mixed with the Maybelline Lifter Liner in the shade Let's Bounce. So those are all of the potential dupes I have. I'm honestly surprised by a few of them. I know that the Hourglass one has not been dupeable. I haven't used this in quite a while, if I'm being honest with you, but I miss it. Now that I've used it and compared it to the NYX one, I'm like, wait, what? Why haven't I used this? So I'm bringing this back into my makeup routine because I forgot how good it was, and the NYX reminded me of how good it was. I mean, I paid $58 for it, so it better be freaking good. The Fenty skin tint had a very close dupe as well. This Essence $6 foundation stick is such a comparable option. I will say it's very light coverage. I think they would have been better off calling it a skin tint stick as well instead of a foundation stick. I think it's great if you are a natural makeup wearer, you want that no makeup vibe, something that you can put on every day without overdoing it. It doesn't look like it sits on top of your skin. It doesn't make your skin look cakey. Even on my textured skin, I think it looks gorgeous. The Maybelline is also a very close dupe of the Rare Beauty, so I was happy about that. And the Huda Beauty, I will say I prefer Huda over the $8 version just because I do think it has more longevity. But if you want a shade dupe, then there's no need to pay the $25 for the Huda Beauty version. And although I love the NYX Butter Bronzer, I'm still always going to choose the Haus Labs. I think it's just easier to work with. It doesn't have as strong of a scent, and I paid a lot more money for this, so obviously I'm going to be using this one. And if you're on a budget, I'm always going to recommend you to use a foundation as a bronzer because you just get a lot more shade options doing it that way. Plus, the $6 foundation stick from Essence is so comparable to the Rare Beauty. Although it's not as pigmented and it's slightly shinier, it does not make that big of a difference for me. So I think you'd be happy with either. I think overall my makeup turned out okay today. I could have done with some baking powder, if I'm being honest. I'm feeling very like glowy. Something looks off about my makeup. I can't really tell, but this isn't like makeup I would always put together. It was more just to see how they compare to each other, and I do think the sides look so similar I can't really tell a difference at all, if I'm being honest. So those are all of the dupes. Let me know if this was helpful or if you have any other drugstore dupe options that you have found. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and as always, thank you for all of the love and support, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!